Whose car is this?
It's mine, officer. Is there a problem?
I'll ask the questions. You got registration?
It's in the glove box. You want me to get it?
Don't reach for anything yet. Stay right there. We had a report of a stolen vehicle.
This vehicle isn't stolen. It's mine.
A white man in a sheriff's deputy uniform has a black man pinned against the door of a silver Lexus. Both of the man's hands are already visible. He hasn't moved. The deputy isn't listening. What you're about to watch was captured on Deputy Russell Brandt's own body camera. The footage was not released voluntarily. It took a federal subpoena, a civil rights lawsuit, and the testimony of 11 witnesses to pull it into the open. That man against the car? And Deputy Brandt assumed he knew exactly who he was dealing with. He was wrong in a way that would cost Denton County $2.3 million and cost Brandt everything he had left to lose. Drop your state in the comments and subscribe before we go further. The moment this story flips will hit you out of nowhere. Russell Brandt was 44 years old and had worn a Denton County Sheriff's Office badge for 19 years. He started as a road deputy in his mid-20s and never moved up. Not because he lacked opportunity. He'd been passed over for sergeant twice. Both times, the review board cited the same thing: complaint history. Inside the department, Brandt had a reputation that nobody put in writing. They called him a self-starter, which in Brandt's case meant he initiated stops without dispatch, ran plates on vehicles he personally decided looked wrong, and had a documented habit of working the stretch of Ridgeline Road where the neighborhood shifted from newer subdivisions to older, working-class homes. The racial demographics of that shift were not subtle. Over 9 years, 14 formal complaints had been filed against Russell Brandt. 8 came from black drivers, 3 from Latino motorists, 1 from a black woman who said he followed her car for 6 blocks before pulling her over for a brake light that, by her account, was working fine. She'd had it checked the next morning. Perfect condition. None of the 14 complaints resulted in suspension. 2 resulted in what the department called counseling conversations. No paper trail, no follow-up, no record in his personnel file that anyone outside HR would ever see. His supervisor, Lieutenant Gary Phelps, reviewed 3 of those complaints personally. Phelps signed off on Brandt twice with a note that read, "Officer exercised reasonable judgment in a field situation." He would later be asked to explain those decisions in a deposition. He would not be able to. Brandt's partner that evening was Deputy Kyle Reuter, 28, 4 years on the job. Reuter had never once filed a disagreement report against Brandt, never flagged a stop as questionable, never walked away from a scene Brandt was running. He drove with Brandt 3 shifts a week and described their working relationship in his internal affairs interview as, quote, smooth. Smooth in this case meant Reuter stood behind whatever Brandt did and wrote whatever Brandt told him to write. That Tuesday evening in October, both men were 40 minutes into a routine patrol when Brandt pulled into the Shell station on Ridgeline. He said later he had spotted a vehicle matching the description of a reported stolen car. The report he cited, a silver 4-door sedan, had been filed 3 counties over. The make didn't match. The model didn't match. The plate didn't match. What matched, according to the body cam, was the driver. Judge Elwood Haverford, 57, had pulled into that Shell station at 7:09 p.m. to fill his tank before the 2-hour drive back to Columbus. He was wearing charcoal slacks, a pale blue dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbow, and a jacket folded neatly on the passenger seat. His judicial credential case, the one issued by the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio, was in the center console where he'd placed it after leaving the courthouse that afternoon. He'd been on the bench for 11 years, a federal appointee, confirmed by the Senate without opposition. That Tuesday had been a full one. Haverford had presided over the final arguments in a multi-defendant wire fraud case starting at 9 in the morning. By noon, he'd handed down a ruling in a civil RICO matter that 2 circuit attorneys had been watching for months. He'd eaten lunch at his desk. By 5, he was done and decided to drive home rather than stay the night in Denton Falls, the way he sometimes did when cases ran long. He drove a silver Lexus ES, his own vehicle, registered in his name, plates current, insurance active. He'd owned it for 3 years, bought it used from a dealership outside of Dayton. He had all the paperwork. Elwood Haverford had grown up in Youngstown. His father had worked 31 years at a steel fabrication plant and retired with bad knees and a pension that lasted 4 years before the company restructured and stopped paying it. His mother had worked 2 jobs for most of his childhood: hotel housekeeping in the mornings, cashier at a pharmacy 3 nights a week. He was the first person in his family to finish college. He put himself through law school on grants, loans, and a clerkship that paid almost nothing. He was not a man who forgot where he came from. He was also not a man who expected to spend a Tuesday evening being treated like a suspect at a gas pump he'd been to a dozen times before. He had just replaced the fuel nozzle and was reaching for his receipt when he heard boots on pavement coming fast. "Hey, you! Don't move!" Judge Haverford turned slowly, both hands visible. The way a man turns when he already knows this is going to require patience he shouldn't have to spend.
Whose car is this?
It's mine, officer. Is there a problem?
I'll ask the questions. You got
It's
registration?
in the glove box. You want me to get it?
Don't reach for anything yet. Stay right there.
Brandt circled the rear of the vehicle. Body cam footage shows him scanning the plates. The timestamp reads 7:14:22 p.m. He's already run the plate by radio. Deputy Reuter confirms this in his own body cam footage, captured from 8 feet behind. The plate comes back clean. Registered owner, Elwood T. Haverford. No flags, no holds, no priors. Brandt comes back to the driver's side anyway. "We had a report of a stolen vehicle matching this description in this area. This vehicle isn't stolen, it's mine. I can show you the title, registration, insurance, everything." "Where you coming from?" "The federal courthouse. I had proceedings there today." "Federal courthouse." The way Brandt repeats it, not as a question, as doubt. His tone is on the body cam, every syllable. What were you doing there?" "I work there." Brandt takes a half step back and looks at Judge Haverford the way some men look at something they've already decided they don't believe. He speaks to Reuter without turning his head. He says he works at the courthouse. Reuter says nothing, but his body cam catches him looking at Haverford's clothing, then at the car, then back at Brandt. He doesn't speak up, doesn't ask a clarifying question, doesn't suggest they verify. He waits. "Sir, and people tell me a lot of things at traffic stops. Right now, I need you to step away from the vehicle." "On what basis?" "On the basis that I'm asking you to," replied Brandt. "I'm going to reach into the console and show you my judicial credentials. I'd like you to look at them."
President,
I'm just on my
step
way to
away
work.
from the vehicle.
Officer, I'm just on my way.
I
to
said
work.
step away. You got 30 seconds before I drag you away myself.
I'm not resisting.
Don't you dare reach. You people always want to reach.
"I told you not to reach," Brandt shouted. "I'm informing you of my intent before I move. My hands are visible. I am not a threat." "That's not your call to make." "Officer, I am a federal judge. If you'll simply allow me to—" "You got ID?" "In the console, yes, along with my court credentials. May I—" "Don't move!" Officer shouted aggressively. 6 seconds of silence on the body cam. The gas station's fluorescent canopy hums overhead. A car pulls up to the adjacent pump. The driver, a white man in a work shirt, watches briefly, then looks away. Brandt takes 3 steps forward. He reaches past Judge Haverford's arm and opens the driver's door himself. Then his right hand closes around Haverford's left forearm. "Out of the vehicle. Now." "I am complying, officer. Let go of my arm." "Stop resisting." "I am not resisting." He isn't. The body cam is the clearest possible evidence of this. Haverford's free hand is raised, palm open, elbow bent. He isn't pulling back. He's being pulled forward. Brandt yanks, hard. The force spins Judge Haverford a quarter turn, and the momentum carries him toward the concrete. His left shoulder hits the edge of the open car door first, a sharp metallic collision that the body cam audio captures without ambiguity. Then his left knee meets the pavement, then his forearm. A gas station attendant 20 feet away flinches at the sound. Haverford does not shout. He does not fight. He lays partially against the door frame and says, with a steadiness that takes effort to maintain, "I am not resisting. I have a medical condition affecting my left knee. I am asking you to stop. Stop talking and put your hands behind your back." Brandt puts a knee in the center of Haverford's back while cuffing him. The cuffs go on tight. Haverford confirms later that his left wrist showed bruising for 11 days. Reuter stands 4 feet back. He has not moved from that spot since the stop began. Quit squirming. Haverford. I am not squirming. I am asking you to loosen the restraints. Sir, Brandt. You should have thought about that before you started acting up. Acting up. On camera. Against a man who had done nothing except stand at a gas pump and try to show his identification. The attendant, a 23-year-old named Priya Nair, working the evening shift, walks out from behind the register window. He wasn't doing anything. He was just standing there. Get back inside, ma'am. I'm recording this. At the adjacent pump, near the man in the work shirt has his phone out now too. He doesn't say anything. He just records. A woman who had pulled in to use the air machine is standing at the edge of the canopy light, also watching. 3 phones. Plus Brandt's own body cam. Plus Reuter's body cam. 5 angles on the same man in handcuffs on the pavement of a gas station, having done nothing wrong. Brandt stands and keys his radio, lowering his voice slightly, but not enough. Dispatch. So we've got a subject in custody at the Ridgeline Shell. Possible 1038. Vehicle match is close enough. Subject became combative during the approach. The word combative is now in the official radio log. It does not match a single frame of footage from either camera. Judge Haverford hears the transmission from the ground. He closes his eyes for 1 long second. He's been in courtrooms for 30 years. He knows exactly what that word just started. Sergeant Diane Hollowell, 12-year veteran, and had been 2 blocks away when the radio crackled. She pulls in at 7:19 p.m. She takes one look at the scene. A well-dressed man face down cuffed against a Lexus, 3 civilian phones recording, no visible signs of a struggle, and her expression does something Brandt's body cam captures clearly. It changes. Brandt, what exactly is the basis for the detention? Stolen vehicle report. Silver 4-door sedan, this area. Plate came back clean? Plate came back to a Haverford. We're verifying. You already ran it, and it was clean, and he's in cuffs on the ground. That was not a question. Sir, can you tell me your name? Hollowell questioned. Elwood Haverford. My credentials are in the center console of this vehicle. I've been trying to show them for the past 6 minutes. Hollowell turns to Brandt. Hollowell. Open the console. Brandt hesitates. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. But those 2 seconds are on camera, and they will be played in a federal courtroom 14 months later. He opens the console. Sergeant Hollowell takes the credential case. She opens it. She reads it. She turns it over and reads the back. She looks at the federal court seal. She reads the name. She looks at Haverford on the ground, then back at the case. United States District Court, Southern District of Ohio. The gas station canopy is the loudest sound for several seconds. She looks up at Brandt. Whatever she's about to say, she decides to handle it in the correct order first. She crouches down next to Judge Haverford. Your Honor, I'm Sergeant Diane Hollowell. I am going to have these restraints removed immediately. I'm sorry this happened. She straightens up and faces Brandt directly. You called in combative. He was being uncooperative. Explain uncooperative to me, Hollowell asserted. He wouldn't step away from the vehicle. Brandt replied. Haverford lifts himself from the ground, calm. I asked to show my credentials on 4 separate occasions. Each time I was told not to reach. I was physically removed from the vehicle before I could show anything. Priya Nair, still recording from 10 feet away, nods once. The man at the adjacent pump nods too. Once Hollowell has him upright and the cuffs are off, Judge Haverford rolls his wrist slowly, checking the circulation. He looks at Brandt, then at Reuter, then back at Brandt. The car at pump 3, silver, 4-door. How has been there since I pulled in. No one has approached it. Everyone looks. Pump 3, a silver Honda Accord, 4-door. White driver, 30s, baseball cap, scrolling his phone while his tank fills. Hasn't been asked a single question. Nobody says anything. The Honda's fuel pump clicks off. Hollowell tells Brandt to return to his vehicle. She says it once, levelly. He goes. Reuter follows without being told. Hollowell stays with Judge Haverford. She takes his full statement on her own body cam. She photographs his wrist. She collects contact information from Priya Nair and from the man at the adjacent pump, a 51-year-old electrician named Pete Calloway, who says he will absolutely give a statement and gives his card. I want an incident report. Everything. His badge number, the radio transmission, the timeline. All of it. Judge Haverford asked, "You'll have it, and I'll be initiating an internal review tonight." Sergeant, I've been on the federal bench for 11 years. I've seen what happens when these things aren't documented properly. Thank God everything was been recorded. Make sure to document everything. Your Honor, I understand. If you've made it this far, you already know where this is going. But the way the accountability unfolds is something else entirely. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what comes next. At 7:43 p.m., Sergeant Hollowell called Sheriff Tom Beaumont at home. She didn't use the standard non-emergency line. She called his personal cell and told him to sit down. Tom, one of ours just put a federal judge on the ground at a gas station. Body cam caught everything. You need to call the courthouse tonight. Beaumont called the chief deputy, who called the county attorney, who called his counterpart at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District before 9 p.m. By Wednesday morning, the incident had reached the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. Not through a formal complaint, Haverford hadn't filed anything yet. It reached them because a federal judge had been detained without cause, and the U.S. Attorney's Office had a legal obligation to report it. The FBI's Columbus Field Office opened a preliminary civil rights inquiry. The Ohio Attorney General's office was notified, and the Chief Judge of the Southern District of Ohio, Haverford's own superior on the bench, issued a formal written inquiry to Sheriff Beaumont, requesting the complete incident report, both body cam files, the radio dispatch log, and the names of all officers present. She used the word immediately. 3 parallel tracks had opened before Russell Brandt had finished his shift report. He found out at 6:15 a.m. the next morning when his supervisor called and told him not to come in. He called Reuter. You hear anything? Reuter. They pulled the body cam already. Both of ours. Said it's under federal review. Federal? Brandt exclaimed. Russ, that guy you arrested, he's a judge, like a real federal judge. He's been on the bench since 2013. Brandt was quiet for several seconds. I was doing my job. Reuter didn't answer. He'd seen the body cam. He knew exactly what doing his job looked like on that footage. And he knew that silence has consequences too, something he was about to learn directly. The federal investigators who reviewed the case in the following 2 weeks pulled everything. They pulled all 14 prior complaint files against Brandt, including the 3 Hollowell's predecessor had dismissed without investigation. They pulled the radio dispatch logs for the previous 18 months and flagged 17 stops Brandt had initiated on Ridgeline Road, 15 of which involved Black or Latino drivers. They pulled Reuter's personnel file. They pulled Hollowell's incident report, which was thorough, accurate, and damaging. They obtained statements from Priya Nair, Pete Calloway, and 4 additional witnesses who had responded to a public notice. All 5 accounts were consistent with the body cam footage. None were consistent with Brandt's written report. Brandt's written report described Haverford as verbally agitated and initially resistant to officer commands. Neither phrase appeared in any footage from any camera at any angle. Sheriff Beaumont released a public statement 4 days after the incident. He said the department had immediately initiated a comprehensive internal review and was cooperating fully with all federal inquiries. In private, according to court documents, Beaumont told the county attorney something much plainer during a recorded strategy session. There is no version of this where we fight it. That body cam shows what it shows. We get ahead of it, or it buries the entire department. 3 weeks after the incident, Judge Haverford gave a formal statement to the DOJ Civil Rights Division investigators. He was precise and unhurried. He described the sequence of the stop with the same clinical clarity he applied to complex rulings: the initial approach, each request to show credentials, the physical removal, the ground, the cuffs, the radio transmission he heard while lying face down on a gas station parking lot. He told them that he hadn't panicked, that he had been calm throughout, not because he wasn't angry, but because he understood, as a black man who had spent a career studying the law, exactly how fast a gas station confrontation could become something worse if he moved too quickly, spoke too sharply, or gave anyone a reason to decide his reaction was the problem. I have spent 11 years on the federal bench making decisions about what is reasonable. Standing at a gas pump with my hands visible while a deputy decided I looked like a suspect is not reasonable. It is a pattern, and patterns don't stop unless they're documented, and they cost something. The Internal Affairs report was completed in 6 weeks. It found that Judge Haverford had been fully compliant at every stage of the encounter, that no valid legal basis existed for the stop, the detention, or the use of physical force. That Brandt's radio transmission describing Haverford as combative was factually unsupported by available video and witness evidence. That Brandt's written incident report contained material inaccuracies. That Deputy Reuter had witnessed an unlawful detention, failed to intervene, and had submitted a report that corroborated Brandt's false account. Both officers were placed on unpaid administrative leave pending termination proceedings. Their department-issued vehicles were reassigned that same afternoon. 31 days after the incident, a formal notice arrived from the DOJ Civil Rights Division. A pattern or practice inquiry had been opened into the Denton County Sheriff's Office. It was not a recommendation. It was not a request. It was a federal investigation into whether the department's supervision, training, and complaint review processes had enabled and protected racially discriminatory policing. 6 weeks after the incident, Russell Brandt was terminated from the Denton County Sheriff's Office. The termination letter cited 4 grounds: conducting a traffic stop without reasonable suspicion, use of excessive force against a detained subject who presented no threat, filing a materially inaccurate incident report, conduct unbecoming an officer. His Ohio Peace Officer Training Commission certification was suspended pending a formal revocation hearing. The suspension carried a recommendation for permanent revocation based on the internal affairs findings and the DOJ's preliminary inquiry. He would not be eligible to work in law enforcement in Ohio while the revocation was pending, which, in practical terms, meant he was done. He filed a union grievance. The union reviewed the body cam footage and declined to pursue it. Kyle Reuter was terminated 9 days after Brandt. His termination cited failure to intervene in an unlawful use of force and submission of a false official report. He was 28 years old. He had spent 4 years following Russell Brandt's lead without once asking a question. That professional loyalty cost him his career and his certification. He later told investigators he had known during the stop that something was wrong. He said he hadn't said anything because Brandt was the senior officer. The investigators noted his statement in the file. It didn't help him. Lieutenant Gary Phelps, who had signed off on Brandt's prior complaint dismissals, was formally demoted to patrol sergeant. 2 other supervisors received written reprimands that were entered into their permanent personnel files. The Denton County Sheriff's Office entered into a voluntary compliance agreement with the DOJ that required an overhaul of its complaint intake procedures, a mandatory racial bias training for all supervisory personnel, independent review of any stop involving physical force, and quarterly reporting to the Ohio Attorney General for 3 years. Sheriff Beaumont announced he would not seek re-election. He said it was for personal reasons. The timing was not lost on anyone. Judge Haverford filed a civil rights lawsuit under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 against Brandt, Reuter, Lieutenant Phelps, and Denton County. The complaint alleged unlawful seizure in violation of the Fourth Amendment, use of excessive force, deliberate indifference to a known pattern of unconstitutional conduct by a supervisory officer, and violation of equal protection under the 14th Amendment. The county's insurance carrier reviewed the evidence and advised settlement before a single deposition was taken. The body cam footage alone, their attorneys concluded, made trial a guaranteed loss. The jury awarded Judge Haverford $2.3 million. The figure included compensatory damages for the physical injury to his knee, which required arthroscopic surgery 3 months after the incident, as well as damages for emotional distress, reputational harm, and punitive damages against Brandt personally for the submission of a false report. The settlement record was made part of the public docket. It will be there permanently. For Russell Brandt, the revocation of his peace officer certification was finalized 8 months after his termination. His name now appears in the Ohio Law Enforcement Agency's Officer Decertification Database, a public record that any hiring department in the state checks before extending an offer. No law enforcement agency in Ohio will employ him. No agency in a reciprocal state will take him without that database being flagged. The career he built over 19 years ended at a gas station on Ridgeline Road in 12 minutes. Reuters' certification was suspended for 3 years. When it expires, he'll have to apply for reinstatement. The documentation of what he did, and what he didn't do, will be in the file when he does. The chief judge of the Southern District called Judge Haverford into her office the week the settlement was announced. She kept the meeting short and direct. So you handled something no one should have to handle, and you handled it with more restraint than most people in that position would have. The court stands behind you, entirely. Haverford, I just needed it on the record. Chief Judge, it's on every record there is. 4 months later, Judge Haverford drove back through Denton Falls on his way home from court. He stopped at the same Shell station on Ridgeline Road, filled the tank, got his receipt. No one approached him, no boots on pavement, and no questions about whose car it was. He drove home. Inside the Denton County Sheriff's Office, now under new supervisory structure mandated by the DOJ compliance agreement, a case study circulates through every new officer orientation. It includes a still frame from Brandt's body cam, a black man standing at a gas pump, both hands visible, doing nothing wrong. Below the image, the caption reads, "This is what a civil rights violation looks like." No names are attached. They don't need to be. The database entries are public. The settlement is public. The decertification is public. The record, as Judge Haverford requested, is everywhere. What happened at the Ridgeline Shell station became public because a sergeant walked in at the right moment and chose to do the right thing. But what happens when no sergeant shows up? When the only person who could have stopped it writes the same false report? When the cameras are there, but the footage disappears? There's another case. A different state, a different kind of professional whose credentials meant nothing to the officer standing over him. The cover-up almost worked. We're going to show you exactly how far it went before it unraveled. That story is coming. Make sure you're subscribed. If this story made you feel something, don't just close the tab. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to see how these cases really end if you let the law guide you ground as a. Comment below. Do you think Judge Haverford should have had to fight this hard, or should the credentials have stopped it the moment he mentioned them?